Well, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, another fantastic guest, and this is one for the record books. I'll tell you, folks, this is a real fun one here. We're going to be speaking with retired Marine Gunny Sergeant Robert Porter, aka Barb, but also aka Gunny Claus. So, Gunny Claus, this is Rob. Radio check. How do you read me over?
Gung ho ho.
I love it. I love it. Oh, you have so much going on. You've served our country well, and now you're doing so much for so many families throughout. We got to get into it, but if you don't mind, I'll just pause and rewind a little bit. Let's start with your origin story. What led you to specifically join not just the military, but the Marine Corps? A little bit about your job, how those decisions kind of laid out for you, and then we'll get into today after that.
Well, um, I'm actually adopted, and so nobody in my family has any military history that adopted me.
Hmm.
Um, but I was always interested in the military. I read comic books like Sergeant Rock. I played with my GI Joe, the big old 12-inch GI Joe, and it was always something that I liked. I drew, drawings when I would draw. It would be military orientated,
Hmm.
and I in 1998 I found my biological mother, and I found out that my grandfather on my mother's side had been in the Army Air Corps during World War II. Two of my uncles had served in the Army during the Vietnam era, and the oldest half brother of mine also joined the Air Force. So it was something in my DNA. It was in my nature to be in the military, and so that's the best way to describe why I joined the military.
Mhm.
I joined the Marines because there's a certain mindset that goes with being a Marine, and if you don't fit your personality, your mindset with the branch of service and what you expect out of it, you're not going to get a good fit. It's like any other job, and you're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy, and it's not going to be a good match, and you're not going to have a good career. Uh, my youngest half brother, he chose the Air Force, and he did a great career in the Air Force. He went Mustang. He retired as a major.
Oh, nice.
I'm a little bit more of a knuckle dragger, and I was offered when I was younger to go to the OCS commissioning program through MECEP by one of my commanding officers, but I just knew once again my mindset and my personality, I would never make it as an officer. I would be too antagonistic at times. Um, I joined, my job was military police. I was a 5811. I picked that because at first, when you're enlisting in the military, you want to look at how can what I'm being trained to do transfer to a civilian job.
Right.
And I thought law enforcement would be a pretty good job in the military and would transfer well to the civilian world. And so, that was my initial intent when I joined in 1986. And then, the next thing you know, 21 years later, they're handing you a folded flag like you've passed away and say, have a nice life.
Yeah, it goes by really fast. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had a lot of different courses and classes and things you did throughout your career, and that's fascinating. I don't think a lot of listeners, if they're not familiar with the military, especially the Marine Corps, it's surprising to me how often folks ask about the connection between the Navy and the Marine Corps. But you worked with a lot of interesting groups and different classes in your career. Could you share a little bit of those details with folks just to kind of educate them on some of the opportunities there?
Yeah. So being a Marine MP, the Marine Corps being the smallest branch, we get a lot of our training from other branches of the service. So my first initial law enforcement training was at Lackland Air Force Base with the Air Force down there in Texas. From there, I went to Okinawa, Japan. I was deployed to Korea 3 times. I was deployed to the Philippines once, where we augmented in the Philippines. We augmented Navy security during a kennel guard exercise. where amazingly enough, the Navy SEALs were the op force, and it's written up in a book called Red Cell by Marchenko,
Huh.
and he talks about that operation and how his guys, uh, you know, posed as terrorists against the Navy base, Subic Bay back then, and
Huh.
I have a little bit of a difference of opinion on how that well they did, but you know, he's not here to defend himself, so I'll just say, they did show the Navy that they needed some additional help. In Korea, we worked with the Army there because that's their home command. Um, and then I was there for 2 years. I went back to the United States. I was stationed at MCRD San Diego,
Okay.
big Navy town, big law enforcement town because it's on the border. So we did training with every three-letter agency that you could think of.
Sure.
Um, when we're in a presidential election year, if a president came out to the base being in law enforcement, we'd be tasked with providing that outer cordon of security. Our canine handlers were tasked with, looking for bombs, looking for other things, and you get to work with them. Uh, I got training with the FBI for defensive tactics. I got trained by the Navy in radar and breathalyzers. Um, Even went up to Orange County Sheriff's Department, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, San Diego Police Department, LA Police Department. I mean, you name it. We got a lot of training. We worked with a lot of organizations. In fact, the drug interdiction boats for the Coast Guard were secured on the Marine Corps Recruit Depot instead of the Navy base because they felt we had better security and better control so that they would be safer there. Um, uh, it's just it goes by so fast, and you do so many things. Uh, when I became an instructor at Fort Leonard Wood for the military police school there, I had to do up a biography of everything that I'd done and all the training that I got,
Mm.
and they like it short and concise and easy to read. And my biography at that point, 15 odd years in the Marine Corps, was over 2 pages long of all the places I'd been,
Oh,
all the
wow.
training I'd done. And my boss is like, dude, you got to cut this down. You got to, get rid of some of this fluff. And I'm like, there's
It's
no
not
fluff
fluff.
here,
Yeah.
you know, but we were able to, shorten it up a little bit and get it down to 1 page.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
my final year was in Iraq. One of my jobs there was with the police transition team. So I lived
Oh, okay.
in the police station with the Iraqi police,
Yeah.
and we tried to train them up to, United States standards. Um, and depending on who you talk to and what the answer is that you want, uh, you know, you'll hear that either one, they were horrible, or two, that they were great. And it's all on how you look at them. One, they were great because they weren't, basically the criminals that they had been underneath Saddam Hussein. Two, they weren't good because they weren't up to American standards. It's only been
Right.
a couple of years. You can't expect, huge changes in law enforcement in a short period of time in a country that's still going through a conflict. But they did improve. They weren't doing a lot of the things that they were doing wrong before we got there. So, uh, in fact, I until recently I've been in contact with one of the lieutenants for a long time.
Oh, that's impressive. What year, roughly what year was that with in Iraq with the
I got into Iraq in 2006,
okay.
and I was there during the surge. I was there when Saddam Hussein was convicted and executed for his crimes.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty interesting time to be there.
Oh yeah. I was there 0405. I was trying to figure out the timeline of the police being stood up because that didn't happen when I was there. We were there for basically just the first elections, and then now we did have some elements of our battalion that would work with the Iraqi National Guard. They were trying to do some training missions with them, but that was like
Yep.
at the tail end. We were pretty much out and way out the door. I think that was only like 8 or 9 weeks of the end. So that yeah. So what you're talking about was about a year later. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, you're right. That was a very busy time. Now that I think about it. we helped them with the Constitution. We had the conviction
Elections. Yep.
trial of Saddam, the elections, and then you helped the police. That's incredible. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that I was able to do, uh, being in law enforcement, not always are there can we get all of our training that we need, because it's law enforcement training, not just Marine training. And so one of the things we needed to do before deploying was to fan fire our shotguns and make sure everybody was qualified to use the shotguns. And due to training and logistics and everything else, I wasn't able to get our marksmanship unit to train my Marines to use the shotguns.
Hmm.
And so our company, our commander was like, hey, figure it out, make it happen. So I contacted other units, and at that time, everybody was either coming or going from Iraq. They were all into their training cycles, and they didn't have any time, or instructors to loan to me to do this training. And when I'd been an instructor at Fort Leonard Wood for the military police, we had the NRA come in and teach all the instructors to be pistol shotgun instructors for law enforcement. So I was like, hey, if I can't get it here, I might be able to get it from the NRA.
Sure.
So sitting in there in the battalion commanders meeting, and the CO asks, does anybody need any money for any training or anything? And, I raised my hand and I said, yes, sir, we could use this training from the NRA. He's like, okay, great. Go ahead and make it happen. I contact them. I get all the requirements back, and it would be $10,000 to train 30 Marines for 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Marine Corps does not like spending a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so my commander's like, yeah, you're not getting any money. And I was like, okay, I'll try to figure something out. But every week he would ask, does anybody need money? And I would always raise my hand. And he'd be like, after a couple of times, he's like, Gunny, you're not getting your money. Does anybody else need money? And, it became a running joke that I was always, trying to get this.
Yeah.
And when the battalion commander comes in with the sergeant major, he calls everybody to attention. Then, he says at ease, and we start the meeting. Well, before the sergeant major could call attention or at ease or anything, the colonel looks at me and goes, Gunny, you got your $10,000.
Nice.
And I've got company commanders and the whole staff all looking at me like, hey, dude, what did you do to get $10,000 today? And I'm dumbfounded. I'm just standing there going, deer in the headlights look. I don't know what's going on. And so we started the meeting, and because it was just before the surge, the military and DOD was going from we're performing the missions to how do we train the Iraqis to perform their missions.
Sure.
And this fell right into that slot.
Yep. Yeah.
And so we got the $10,000. The next snafu was trying to get the ammunition, because it was a lot of ammunition, way above what would normally be allocated for each Marine for the year. And so our battalion ammo supply is like, you can't get it. So, they passed it up and went to 1MLG, and 1MLG is like, yeah, you can't get the ammo because, it's way above. And so we went to a colonel for the whole West Coast. And it was the week before the training started. We paid the $10,000. We got the NRA coming out. We got them in their hotels. We've got all the ranges. I mean, we've got everything. All we're waiting for is the ammo. And I'm talking to the colonel on the phone. I think it was a Thursday before the course starting the next Monday. And, he goes, sorry, Gunny, all I can give you is X number of rounds, for your course. And I was like, okay. Call Colonel Richmeyer, tell him why he just wasted $10,000.
Right.
And this colonel's like, what are you talking about? I go, if you looked at the request, you would see that this course has been bought and paid for, and they're going to be here for 2 weeks. We can stand there for 2 weeks and look at targets and not do anything, or you can give me my ammo. And his reply was, "How's Tuesday sound?" So
Love
I
it.
got all my ammo on Tuesday. Um, we did the training. We actually had the public affairs out there take pictures of us, and those were released to, believe it or not, Soldier of Fortune magazine,
Oh,
and
nice.
we were in Soldier of Fortune, a March 2006 issue.
Awesome. Yeah, shout out to that magazine. There's a the head of that now is a veteran. She was in the army for a while too. So
Yep.
yeah, that's fantastic. Well, that's cool. So that was so your time in the well, your active duty time, your retirement came kind of at the end of that tour, or did you
Yeah.
have a few more missions after you got home? Yeah.
No, I came back into March of 2007, February 2007, and I retired in June 30th of 2007.
Beautiful.
Yep.
That's a nice way to hurt.
Well, I mean, when I joined the Marine Corps, I had three goals, and going to combat was the last of my goals. And you got young Marines joining that hadn't been born when you were already in the military,
Right.
and it's like, as they said in Lethal Weapon, I'm getting too old for this.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, I lucked out timing being what it was that my enlistment had gone. It was up while we were deployed. So when I finished my tour from Iraq, it was I just kind of lucked out. The ETS date and everything just kind of went smooth. Had my
yeah,
terminal leave. I was out before the duffel bag showed up on the ship a couple months later.
right.
So that's fantastic. So um, I'm always curious about, of course, you were a leader, so you're in the same bucket that I'm going to ask you about, but um, everyone that joins the service learns something that just, shifts their mind a little bit. Is there a specific lesson or maybe just a leader you had at one point that you really it just kind of opened your mind a little bit and it kind of carried you and even now you think about, wow, that's a life lesson, not just a Marine Corps lesson?
I think the first, you have good leaders that you want to emulate, and unfortunately, there's always the other end of the spectrum where you have bad leaders. And uh, I think the one lesson that I learned, uh, and as a Marine, I think we all try to strive is to lead from the front. And I just got into my new unit. I'm in Okinawa. We're doing a battalion run or a battalion hike. I can't remember. And there's of course some Marines that, for whatever reason, aren't physically fit enough to either do the run or do the hike, and they fall out and they get put into a safety vehicle. And I remembered seeing a staff NCO supposedly in the back helping this person out, because they were taking accountability for him or whatever. And I looked at him and I'm like, yeah, you're not here to help that person. You're here because you can't hack it yourself.
Right.
And I was like, that's not a Marine leader. This guy shouldn't be here. And
Yeah.
I use guy, like a lot of people of my age, as a generic term for male, female, anything else. I just, how I was raised and how we talked about people.
Mm.
And so, I was like, you know what? If there is a time where I can't be in front, I can't lead my Marines, I'm not going to be this person that's in the back.
Yeah.
And so that was, that made me try harder at everything. And, you know, yeah, it's a negative one, but for me, it was a positive because I was never going to be that person. And I
Yeah.
never was.
Well, it helps you raise your own internal standards above and beyond, what you
Yeah.
were seeing. Yeah. In a truck without a ruck is not a leader.
Yeah.
That's just not. So, oh man. Well, that's good that you called it out and that you saw in your own path, like, hey, this is, when it's time, it's time, and then you let the next generation take care of it. So,
Yep.
all right. So as you retired, Did you have a little bit of a lead time where like you could make some plans? Did you try to figure out what the next steps were, or did you just kind of part ways and then figure it out afterwards? How was the
Um,
transition for you?
I had really thought that I would get selected for Master Sergeant. And I really didn't think what that would entail in the Marine Corps, what my duties would be. And so when I got passed over for Master Sergeant and I had to get out, I really hadn't been planning for a civilian career, what I was going to do, and I was a little bit upset. And it wasn't until I had actually gotten home, taken off the pack, had some time to look around and assess my situation that I realized it was actually a benefit for me. Because as I had said, there's no way I was ever going to be an officer. If I'd picked up Master Sergeant, I would have been stuck on a Marine Corps base, one of the larger law enforcement units, and I would have had to be behind a desk. And that's not what I joined the Marine Corps for. I didn't want to be, sitting behind a desk.
Right,
And being a gunny, you are out with the Marines. You are behind the desk. It's that great job of where you can do just anything you want. And so it really, initially I was upset, but later on I was really relieved and happy that I got out as a gunnery sergeant, and I was able to come home and start. I like to look at it as my third life. So
right.
there's the life before the Marine Corps, there's the life in the Marine Corps, and there's the life after the Marine Corps.
Yeah. Yeah, I often say on the show, it's becoming a service member. There's a good process for that. Every branch has it figured out. They know in 7 to 9 weeks they can turn a fat, lazy, couch surfing, channel flipping teenager into someone that knows how to lock in step with strangers and fight wars and defend and learn skills that they never even contemplated was a job they needed to do. But to become a veteran,
Yeah,
there's no SOP. And for some of us, if it's some of us, good or bad, it becomes a lifelong process. We all come
especially
into,
for the Marine Corps,
yeah, especially for the Marine
because
Corps.
we are, the expression is once a Marine, always a Marine.
You know,
There are no former Marines. Uh, it's more difficult for us to reintegrate into society than I think anybody else.
I agree.
You
It's
know,
the
I,
smallest branch personnel wise. There's fewer bases stateside, so when you leave, it's not like you're going back to a neighborhood that's full of Marine veterans. There's less connectivity. I mean, we
yep,
have social media and things now, which is fine, but I mean, you don't have, like if you were in the army and you were in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and you get out of the army, well, you're in a town of like 100,000 army veterans.
yep,
So they can kind of find themselves easily. But Marine Corps, there's, few and
yeah.
far between for a reason because it's the best of the best. And I agree with you, Gunny. That's a tough, it's a tough thing to just go out on your own. If there's not like a pathfinder ahead of you that can connect you with the next job opportunity or whatever. So what was the first couple years for you? I mean, what type of steps did you have to take?
So, um, and it's one of the reasons why I'm involved with the Toys for Tots program now is because of. There we go. Just wanted to plug my laptop back in. I didn't want to lose power.
Oh, no worries. You're good.
Um, so one of the things, getting back to my hometown where I grew up, is trying to find a way to reintegrate and make connections in the community. And so one of the things that I figured out would be the best way to do it is to volunteer with charities. Um, Toys for Tots, because it's a Marine program, was one of the ones that I decided to help out. We had a unit here, Fox 225, a reserve unit, and so they really didn't need a lot of help, but I was able to go in and help every once in a while. And then a couple of years later, the unit was moved from New York to Connecticut, and the Toys for Tots program was still here, but and they needed actual Marines in uniform to come out and do events so that we could keep that face of the Marine Corps running the program.
Hmm.
And there weren't a lot of Marines here that could do that. And so the person who was in charge of the program, Gunny Roman, affectionately known as Vinny, called me up and said, "Hey, I need you to come out and put the uniform on." And I was reluctant because having been a military policeman in the Marine Corps, I was very stoic. I was very stern. Then added on top of that, I had been a drill instructor. It's knife hands and you know
Yeah.
it's not going to be very conducive to being with Toys for Tots and being around kids. So he's like, "Look, I just need you to come out, see how it is, get a feel for it." I was like, "Okay." I didn't have the beard. My hair was probably about this long because I'd been out a year or two. And we did this event with Toys for Tots, Amtrak, Canadian Pacific. It was a train, and we would do 2 days on this train, and we'd deliver toys to the charities that couldn't come to Albany to pick up the toys. And we had a Santa and a Mrs. Claus, and they had a big red bag. We had the Air National Guard here; they'd help us out. We had a Navy Reserve unit here; they helped us out. There's a reserve unit down in Newburgh, flies C-130s and CH-53s. So a couple of their Marines came up and helped. And they'd all get off the train with a big red bag of toys like Santa, and the kids would swarm over them. And I'm the last person out because I'm in civilian clothes, and I got the big red bag like Santa, and I'd step off the train, and they scattered like cockroaches. They were terrified of me. I felt like Krampus. I felt like the Anti-Claus. I was like, this is not good. And it was 2 days of that.
The
And
Antichrist.
so, you know, the season's over, and Vinny's talking to me, and he's like, "Look, we need you to come out, get in uniform and really help the program out." And I'm like, "Didn't you see what happened? I can't do this. I put the uniform on, it's going to be even worse." And so, the season was over, and I was trying to figure out, some way to be able to do this. And I was on social media, and I saw a friend of mine who's a Marine in New Jersey, and we're talking, messages back and forth, and their feed pops up, and I see Gunny Claus in their feed, and I'm like, wow, that's really cool, So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that guy's great, I how'd he get the scarlet blouse? I thought that was only for the band. And my friend's like, well, I was in the band, I can get you the blouse.
It's
And I'm
awesome.
like, great, so they got me the blouse, made the campaign cover, and I became Gunny Claus. And initially it was just there to help the local Toys for Tots program during the Christmas time. But then it expanded. The Toys for Tots program here actually called me up and said, "Hey, we need you to go do an Easter event with the Boys and Girls Club." And I'm like, "Okay, great. I'm glad you told me because I was about to shave this, because it's not winter. I don't
Right.
need the beard."
Right.
And then it goes from there. I'm involved with another organization called the Reverent Warriors, which is connected to Vet TV, and they do suicide prevention. And you know, people joke, they'll see me out in an event. It's May, June, July. They're like, "Hey, Gunny, what are you doing here? It's not Christmas." And I go, "Hey, I got to check the list twice. When do you think I start? When do you think I start checking that list? It's not December 21st. It takes some time.
Doing my
You know,
recon now, my intel briefing. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So and from that, I ride a motorcycle. So I do. It used to be called Rolling Thunder in Washington D.C. It's now called Rolling to Remember. It's run by AMVETS. Still a great program. Last year, I think we had about 30,000 bikes there. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
30,000? Cool.
yeah.
Wow.
Um, the actor Robert Patrick, T-1000 Terminator 2.
Yep.
Well, he's a good friend of a friend, New York Mike, who used to own San Diego Harley, uh, is there with Robert Patrick, and we have a Marine that stands there and salutes all the motorcycles as they go by. He's called the Saluting Marine.
You know.
Staff Sergeant Tim Chambers, I know him well. And so Robert Patrick had a film crew there this last year and was trying to cover the ride and everything, and what was going on with the Gold Star mothers and Gold Star families and
Mhm.
Blue Star families. And, so I'm talking to Mike, my friend, and all of a sudden Robert Patrick's standing there talking to me, and there's the film crew and the camera and everything. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting put on the spot. I got to do something. And he wanted me as Gunny Claus to salute Staff Sergeant Chambers during the ride.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, not a problem. He leaves. I got to take my bike out of general population and bring it over to his group so that I can get in the filming process, uh, you know, get lined up and do that. And I was able to do it. I'm waiting for the film footage to be edited and released. Uh, while I was doing that, there was a photographer there that worked with Harley Davidson, and my bike's a 2007. It's almost completely stock. It doesn't look great. It's got some miles on it, 163,000 miles.
Good for you, Gunny. That's fantastic.
And so he sees me moving my bike, and he looks over. He doesn't even give it a second look. And I'm like, I'm here. I might as well see if I can get this guy to take some pictures of it. And so I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, all right. I go, you want to see something really cool? And he's looking at this stock bike, and he's like, what's this guy going to show me on this bike that's cool? And so I hit the tachometer, and I go, look at that, 163,000 miles. And he's like, wow. And so he gets his light guys over there and brings over all his cameras and stuff and starts taking a picture of me and my bike. And I'm like, all right, see how this goes.
That's incredible.
Yep.
I'm in upstate New York, so it's winter or construction season every other day. But around here, if you get 5,000 for a season, that's a good season. That's like a record.
Yep. And there was a time I was putting about 10,000 on a season.
Wow, good for you.
Yep.
Fantastic. So yeah, so I don't want to skip over some things that maybe some of our listeners aren't clear on, but I find it fascinating. I always thought this was fun about the Toys for Tots is that it's actually part of duty for the Marine Corps. If I'm correct, please correct me if I'm not, but I think it's the fourth the is it Marine fourth. I'm trying to remember. It's actually a mandate of the Marine Reserves as
Right.
part of their duty to do this charity
Yes.
run. So could you maybe just explain some of the basics for folks that maybe they heard the name but they don't actually know the full
Yep.
details of how that goes.
So it was started by a Marine in California in 1957. His wife had made a toy for a child for Christmas, and she wanted to find a deserving family. And there was no organization there at the time to help out families in need during Christmas. So he started that program. The amazing thing is not a lot of people realize this, but Walt Disney himself designed the Toys for Tots logo that we use today.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, and so if you look back to that era, you'll see that a lot of Hollywood stars supported the Toys for Tots program because the Marine was the liaison for the Marine Corps in the TV and movies.
Oh, that's
So he
cool.
knew all these stars and he had all these connections, hence having, himself, do the Toys for Tots logo. And it took off like anything else that a Marine's going to do. It's going to succeed.
Of course.
And, it started to expand outside of just LA. And, it became an official mission of the Marine Corps Reserve. And that's why I said, Fox 225 that had been here had that mission. And somebody had to take it over afterwards after they left. And so Gunny Roman, Vinny took it over. And, it's still going strong. This program, if I'm not mistaken, is the number one program in the world for toys delivered.
Yeah.
And it's done by reserves. And we cover, depending on who you talk to, 14, 17 counties across New York State. from the Pennsylvania border to the Canadian border,
Hmm.
and it's run by two staff sergeants right now. And we get a lot of help from a lot of civilian organizations. The Colony bus drivers, they help us out. Dunkin' Donuts, they help us out. Some of the other banks, some of the other bigger organizations in the area help us out. But it's, you know, it's the charity of everybody that really makes this happen.
Hmm.
And one thing that everybody wants to do is they want to donate that big ticket item so that, you know, a kid will get a bicycle, they'll get a train set, they'll get a PlayStation or whatever, because that's what they see, they feel that they would want. But that's not the only thing we need. We need stocking stuffers, because you don't want just one toy for one kid. You want them to have several things. And so you can go to the dollar store, you can go to Five and Under, you can go, you know, as they're checking out, and you know, today, now that it's getting close to Christmas, they've got, you know, the little toys, knickknacks and beanies and stuff at the checkout counter, and they're a buck
Sure.
or $2. You can get 4 or 5 of those. Um, I was in Hobby Lobby a couple of years ago when the fidget spinners were huge,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
right?
Yeah.
And you know, they'd gotten some that weren't selling, and so it was in the clearance section, and I go to the clearance section in toys, you know, to see what's there, see if I can get a good deal, and it had a price, and it looked like $2.50. So I called over one of the clerks. I said, "Is this $2.50?" And they said, "No, it's 25 cents." I just picked up the bin of however many
Take
were
them
there
all. Yeah,
and took them all up to the front. You know, the the cashier wasn't happy because, you know, they had to count them all out, and there's like 50 something odd ones of them. But you know, it was the greatest thing, because now there's here, it was a huge item at the time. Here's 50 odd kids who are going to get fidget spinners, and you know, it didn't cost me, you know, $5. So it doesn't have to be a big ticket item. It can be something smaller. And we were talking about this beforehand. Our program, since we have a permanent location here in Albany, the capital region Toys for Tots. Um, Say you were to get something like a fidget spinner on Christmas and you don't want it. Well, you know, it's pain in the butt to try and find the store, bring it back, get the receipt, all that stuff. If you don't want a toy and it's, you know, you haven't broken it out of the box, you know, it's not used, we'll take that toy. As long as it's brand new, it's in the box, we'll take that toy. We can't take things that are used, because today, being electronics and a lot of things like that, we don't have the means to refurbish something or repair it and then give it out.
sure.
So we can't take used toys. But if you have something that didn't get broken up or opened and ruined in any way, and it's still, you know, you still got the wrapping, basically, we'll take that and we'll roll it over to next year's uh, campaign.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, the fact that you're year round, that makes it so that's fantastic. Yeah, so folks, if you're listening, and yeah, keep that in mind. We'll make sure on the website we have the links, addresses, all the locations, all the things that you guys have out there. We'll make it easier for our followers.
And
And
to once again go to current events, we just had 2 hurricanes hit the southeast of the United States.
mm,
Homes devastated, gone, completely wiped off the face of the earth. And the Toys for Tots program will go in, and for the families that have children, we'll find an age appropriate toy for those children so that they have a toy. Because it's not just, you know, you've lost your house, your furniture, your TV. Is now, what does this kid do? He has no toys. And the program, the Toys for Tots program, is also expanded into a reading program. So we give out books and stuff like that. So now you have a kid, he's engaged because he's got a toy, he's happy because he's got a toy, and he's got something to do, uh, you know, with his mind, instead of just, you know, because there's no internet service, there's no, you know, wireless, there's no cell phones. So he can't do anything. So now he's got a book or something to read and do.
yeah, I didn't realize that, Gunny. Forgive me. That's fantastic to know about the books, because locally, we'll talk offline, but there's quite a few book drives and sometimes overstock of stores that they're looking for charities to send brand new books to. So I'm going to make
Yep.
a point of connecting that for you guys. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, like a true Marine, you're always busy, sir. I tell you what. And I see there's
You
some
know, that's
other.
one of the funny things. People think I'm really super busy. I do have a lot of events, but social media looks like it makes it look so much bigger than it actually is. Um, I joke with people. I feel like I'm skipping high school by myself because I don't have a job, and so I just find these things to do to get involved with so that I can help, and as long as it connects back to my core of am I helping the military, am I helping a veteran, am I helping the kids, is it something to provide mental health services, help people mentally, um, you know they're all things that I'm willing to do and help out. um,
Yeah, if you don't mind touching on that subject for a minute, because I noticed that you do quite a bit in fundraising and events for NAMI. So that's a big organization that I'm personally, so we support the local chapter here. Maybe if you don't mind, talk about that. That was at an annual. I just saw something not too long ago on your social media. Was it an
yeah, it was
annual
just this
race?
past weekend.
Okay, it was an
They had
annual.
their annual walk for suicide prevention, mental health. um, I just recently found the organization once again, going through social media and through friends on social media. Um, it was a article in the Times Union about a father who had lost his son to suicide when his son was in high school. And I read the article and I realized that the person was a classmate of mine.
Oh,
We had been in high school together, and um, it brought back the incident to me, and really hit home. Uh, I remember the day he and I were both riding the same bus home after school. I had been in soccer practice because I was in sports, and he was riding the late bus home because he'd been in detention. He wasn't, you know, towing the line in high school. He wasn't, one of the jocks or the brains or whatever. And he was talking to a friend, and they were going to go into the local spot, and they were going to have a party after they got home. And I remembered hearing it, and I'm like, "Yep, that sounds like him. Good on him." And I get home, and it's about an hour, and I get a phone call uh, saying that the person's apologizing that my brother's dead. And my older brother, when he was a junior in high school, had been in a very bad car accident and almost died. Spent a lot of time at Albany Medical Center recuperating. And if you see him today, you can still see some of the effects of that accident, the scars. Um, and so, without saying anything, it wasn't a stretch to think that something bad could happen to my brother. And it was the first call, and so I was taken off guard, and they realized it and they hung up immediately. I get a couple more calls, same line. Sorry, your brother's dead. And about an hour or two has gone by, and I'm on the phone with somebody. They're offering their condolences, and my brother walks into the house,
mhm.
and I'm like, "What kind of sick joke is this? What are you doing?" And now the person on the other end says a name and says my name, Bar. And I'm like, "This is Bar. I'm not dead." And there's an immediate, they immediately hang up. They don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Several more phone calls, get that taken care of. Next day, I go into the school, and now it's cleared up that unfortunately Kevin Barr had committed suicide minutes after getting off the bus. And the friend that was going there to see him and have a party after school was the one who found him. And Barr is a very unusual name, and that's why there was the confusion
Yeah.
between him and me.
Yeah. Mm.
And time passes, and you don't think about it. I then do my 10-year high school reunion, and the internet is just starting to come up. It's not a lot of information. A lot of people are on it, and I just happened to be home on leave that weekend, and my neighbor said the reunion's going on, so I went to the reunion, And since nobody'd seen me for 10 years, that creeped back in. And so some of the people, once again, thought I had passed away in high school.
Mhm.
And so when I saw this article about him and his father talking about it, that's when I found NAMI and I started volunteering on their walks. And I walk for Kevin Barr.
Oh, that's a wonderful tribute. Yeah. Yeah, that's an organization that's done a lot of good for folks, and even just getting people together that have been, unfortunately connected over that. It's helpful to know that people aren't alone. We only wish we could go back in time and let the Kevins of the world know that they weren't alone either. And of course, within the
And
veteran
the,
community, it's a big issue as well. It's a big issue with everybody, but
and the thing is I look at it this way. You know, a lot of people who have problems in their lives think that this is a simple solution, but they don't they don't think that people will care. They don't think that people will miss them. They don't think that there's that connection for them. They're they feel they're disconnected from everything. And this occurred in 1983, 82, 83, and here it is, 2024, and there's still that hole in my life because he's gone. We just had our 40th high school reunion and he wasn't there. So the, it's not the solution that anybody wants. There
yeah,
are people out there that care about you. You may not realize it at the time, but you will be missed.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well said, Gunny. Well said. So, well, I can't thank enough for all that you're doing. I mean, you're showing by an example what a true Marine is capable of. All these different, we'll call them adventures in the Marine Corps, and now you're working on so many projects now. Um, if you had an opportunity to, time travel and just talk to yourself, like if you only had a minute and the only thing you could do with it is talk to yourself before you join, what type of advice would you have given yourself before starting this interesting way of life we have here as veterans?
Um, I don't think there's really any advice that I would give myself to make any changes, um, because I'm pretty happy the way things turned out. Um, there were times where I made mistakes. There are things that I did wrong, um, but it was that Jim Carrey movie, The Clean Mind or something, where he took out all the mistakes in his life,
Oh,
um, and he's left with nothing. There's he has a blank life. The good and the bad make our lives. You know, I try to learn from other people's mistakes, but sometimes, I'm not that smart and I have to make the mistake myself
yep.
and learn from it,
Yeah,
and hopefully be able to pass on to others, not to make that mistake. And that's, I think, what I do now is that's my time travel. I was in Pennsylvania for the Celtic Classic because I'm part Scottish, and I'm down there, and the pipe and drum from Annapolis is there, and so here's these young men and women going into the Navy. They're going to become commissioned officers. They're going to have a career in the Navy, and that's my time travel. I can sit there and I can say to them, "Hey, look, I made this stupid mistake. It made me who I am, but you don't have to make that same mistake, and you can do better." Um, just recently, I was in San Diego and I was able to do a podcast called Urban Valor. And I talked same way I'm talking to you, some of the things I'm doing and some little short stories about my time in the military. And, you're talking like this and you don't really think about the ramifications and how this expands out and how people see it and find it. And so one of the stories was a little bit controversial on uh, coming home and being questioned about what you did in Iraq and what you didn't do in Iraq, and what questions you really don't want to ask somebody unless they offer that information before you ask. And then you have to take that information with a grain of salt because the majority of people here in the United States have never been to combat, have never had to fire, do anything in anger
Right.
to save another person's life or anything like that.
Mhm.
And so that was a controversial one of the subjects that I discussed. But here it goes out on the social media, and a couple weeks later, I get a message on Instagram from a name I don't recognize, a picture that is an icon. It's not of their face, and it's like, "Hey, Gunny, how you doing?" Blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, "Who is this person? Why are they contacting me? Are they going to be berating me about what I said about this subject?"
Mhm.
And then he goes, "Oh, you don't. This isn't my real name. This isn't my real icon." And he sends me his real name and his picture, and it was my guide from my first platoon as a drill instructor back in 2000.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I'm just completely blown away.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, he took what I taught him as a basic Marine, got commissioned and retired from the Marine Corps as a major. And he's attributing everything that he's done to me as his drill instructor. And once again, I had to say, hey, I'm a knuckle dragger. I never made it. You became a Marine because of me. You became a major. You got commissioned because of you and what you did, and you built on what I gave you. You have all that, not me. I have a very tiny slice of that pie at the very beginning. All of that cake that you built, all that building that you built on yourself, that's you. You did that because of your drive and
Yeah.
your skills.
Yeah, that's really cool that you reach out to though. And you were expecting something negative. It turned out to be a high compliment. That's fantastic. Uh, Well, I gotta thank you again, Gunny. This has been a real fun treat for us to have you on. Folks, I want you to support his mission and everything he's doing. So please go to the LimaCharlieShow.com, and under Gunny Claus's picture there, you'll see all the links to things he referenced and all his current projects. And
There's a one more I want to
oh, of course,
put out there.
yeah.
Um, I was a drill instructor on 9/11 in San Diego. I was working as a MSIWS, one of the instructors that teach drown proofing to the Marines in boot camp. And there was a fireman who was off duty, and he took it upon himself to get his gear together and try to get to ground zero to help out his fellow firefighters. He got stuck in traffic because they closed all the tunnels, so he couldn't get into Manhattan. So he put on all his gear and he ran from that tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, I believe, to the World Trade Center, got into the building with his fellow firefighters, and was killed when the buildings collapsed. And the organization tunneled to towers. They just held their annual charity here where we run up 42 flights of stairs at the Corning Tower at the Empire Plaza. A lot of fire departments there, a couple police departments there. Um, and this is my third year doing it. And this year I carried 22 pounds for the 22 veterans, military members that commit suicide a day. I also carried the pictures of some of the firefighters and policemen that died on that day because they'll print them out and you can carry them in their honor. And, you know, I really don't think too much about it. I was one of the last people to actually go up the flights of stairs because I wanted, people that were running for time and running for, had actually raised a lot of money for the cause to go ahead of me. So I was one of the last ones to go in. And we get all done. You're at the top. Some of us look worse than others. And we get down and we hold the ceremony at the end. And amazingly enough, this year I got first place for the military.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
I was pretty happy about that.
Mhm.
I was hurting the next day, but I was
Yeah,
happy. I was proud. So we need more military members to do this because I can't be first every year.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, your civilian counterpart, Santa, he's up there. He only works one day a week or one day a year. Here you are doing all this year-round stuff. You're certainly not sitting there eating cookies. You're in shape.
Yeah, I don't eat cookies. I eat crayons.
Yeah. Spoken like a true Marine. I love it. Love
Yeah.
it.
So if you want to leave something out for Gunny Claus on Christmas Eve, It's Guinness and crayons.
Make sure I tell all the kids that this year. Put the crayons out. Yeah,
Did, did
that's
you get the connection there?
yeah. The Marines, yeah, eating crayons.
No, no, no. You're there's a connection even below that.
Oh,
So Gunny Claus, Golf Charlie, Guinness crayons, Golf
oh, geez.
Charlie. See,
Yeah,
that's how I make a lot of these connections. Like, one of the expressions I use is gung ho ho. The Marine Corps has gung ho. We started that in World War II. It's a Chinese word for work together.
yeah.
Santa is ho ho ho. So I combine the two to make it a Gunny Claus expression of gung ho ho.
I love it. Great humor. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And the other one, because I do deal with a lot of other branches of the service, you
Mhm.
know, because I am a veteran. Um, Not everybody appreciates it when a Marine says Semper Fi to them because they didn't serve in the Marines. They don't understand it's just an expression that we use to greet each other and to greet others. So it's for me, it's now Semper Festivus,
Love
Festivus for the rest of us. So now nobody can complain when I say Semper Festivus to them.
it. Oh, that's fantastic. Nice Seinfeld reference there. Yeah.
Yep. I'm waiting for Jerry to sue me because then I'll be famous. I mean, or infamous, however you want to look at it. I'll be on the naughty list. But hey, I'll take it.
Oh, I love it. Keep the humor. The world needs a lot more of it, I'll tell you. That's fantastic. Well, folks, once again, this is a great conversation. Please check out everything he's doing. Go online, show him and his teams, multiple teams he's working with, and in some cases leading all sorts of, we'll call it leading the fight. But some of them are fun and some of them are serious. Do what you can to support him and his mission. The great Gunny Claus here. So thanks again for your time. And
Okay,
let's
just
say,
last thing. Some of the things that I'm doing.
sure.
I don't know how many Marines or how many people in Hawaii are going to see this, but a sergeant that worked for me back in 2000 is now a sergeant major, and he's a sergeant major of the Marine Corps Base Hawaii. Used to be Kanoe Bay Air Station,
Okay.
and I'm going out there for their Christmas party, December 10th.
Nice.
I'm also going to try and go down to the groundbreaking of Tun Tavern in Philadelphia this year. They're supposedly going to have Tun Tavern rebuilt for the 250th anniversary of the Marine
Yep.
Corps.
Yep.
So I'm going down there for that. That'll be um, I think that's the 10th. Yes, it's going to be the 10th of November in Philadelphia. The 13th of November in New York is going to be the commissioning of the USS uh, um, Basilone. They're commissioning a ship in honor of John Basilone, machine gunner from World War II, Medal of Honor recipient. And if I'm not too tired, I'll be in the Veterans Day Parade in New York City that day. And afterwards, we'll have a little get together with the Marines of New York, our little holiday party for the Marine birthday and Veterans Day.
Fantastic.
Um, that's Other than that, I'm trying to keep busy, trying to do good things and make people happy and make sure that kids get toys.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'll have to connect you with Chris Kunkel, Marine veteran, who is definitely going to be at the tavern. He's groundbreaking in the 250 anniversary. We've had a few folks on the show that are Marines that are planning to go to that as well. So maybe you'll have to have a little Lima Charlie salutes, a little cheers, festivals. We'll call it a couple of festivals together. Yeah. So well, that's great,
Crack
Gunny.
open the grog.
Yeah, yeah. So this is all good stuff. So we're happy to support your mission. I'll be talking to Meg offline, and we'll see what we can do here. And of course, you're not too far from us, so we'll get the collection points. We'll get the all the details, put it online, push it to the stations, and on top of the social media stuff. So we're hoping to help support you best we can from our area. And just want to thank you again for everything you're doing, and obviously thank you for your service. But your continued service is very, very impressive. So. Thanks very much, Gunny Claus, and I wish you a very a continued Festivus. All
Semper Festivus.
right, folks, stand by.